In 1956, during his first major studio session, Elvis couldn't get anything right. Overwhelmed and frustrated, he crawled under the piano and cried. Producer Sam Phillips found him there and asked, "Is this your safe place?" Elvis nodded. Sam replied, "Then sing from there." What happened next created one of Elvis's most iconic recordings. It was January 10th, 1956, and 21-year-old Elvis Presley was in RCA's Nashville studio for his first major label recording session. This was the big time. RCA had paid an unprecedented $40,000 to buy his contract from Sun Records. The music industry was watching. Everyone wanted to know if the young sensation from Memphis was the real thing or just a flash in the pan. Elvis was terrified. At Sun Records with Sam Phillips, everything had been relaxed, informal. They'd experiment for hours, try different things, laugh at mistakes. But this was different. This was a big corporate studio with expensive equipment, union musicians, and executives checking their watches because studio time cost money. The session was supposed to start at 2 p.m. By 6 p.m., they had nothing usable. Elvis had tried take after take of different songs, but nothing felt right. His voice sounded stiff, nervous. The spontaneity and magic that had made his Sun recording special was completely missing. "Let's take a break," said Steve Scholes, the RCA executive overseeing the session. His tone was polite, but Elvis could hear the worry underneath. The musicians set down their instruments and headed to the break room. The producers huddled in the control booth, discussing what to do. Everyone carefully avoided looking at Elvis, who sat on a stool in the corner, his head in his hands. Elvis could feel the weight of everyone's expectations crushing him. RCA had bet their reputation and a fortune on him. His parents were depending on him. Colonel Parker was depending on him. But most of all, he was depending on himself to prove that he wasn't just a regional novelty act, that he belonged in the same studio where the greats recorded. And he was failing. The pressure built and built until Elvis couldn't breathe. He stood up, looked around the empty studio, and did something nobody expected. He crawled under the grand piano in the corner of the room and curled up in the shadows. Elvis sat under that piano with his knees pulled to his chest, trying not to make any sound while tears rolled down his face. He felt like a child hiding from the world. 21 years old, supposed to be a rising star, and he was crying under a piano because he couldn't handle the pressure. He could hear muffled voices from the control room. He imagined what they were saying. Maybe we made a mistake. Maybe he's not ready. Maybe the Sun Records magic was just Sam Phillips's production, not Elvis himself. Elvis had about 10 minutes of solitude under that piano before he heard footsteps entering the studio. He held his breath, hoping whoever it was wouldn't notice him. "Elvis?" It was Sam Phillips' voice. Elvis's heart sank. Sam had driven up from Memphis to be at this session to support his former protege. And here Elvis was, hiding like a scared kid. "I know you're in here, Elvis. I can see your feet sticking out from under the piano." Elvis closed his eyes in embarrassment. Sam's footsteps came closer. Then, to Elvis's surprise, Sam sat down on the floor next to the piano, not calling Elvis out, not telling him to pull himself together, just sitting quietly. After a long silence, Sam spoke. "You know, I hid under a piano once. I was about 14, had to play in front of my whole church, and I froze up, ran and hid under the piano in the church basement. My mama found me there." Elvis sniffled, listening. "You know what she said to me?" Sam continued. She said, "Samuel, this piano here, it's just wood and strings. The music isn't in the piano. It's in you, and you can make that music anywhere, sitting on a bench, standing on a stage, or hiding underneath where nobody can see you." Sam paused. "Is this your safe place, Elvis, under this piano?" Elvis's voice came out small and broken. "I can't do it, Sam. I can't be what they need me to be. I'm just a kid from Tupelo who got lucky. This is too big. These people, this studio, this pressure, it's too much." "So sing from under the piano," Sam said simply. Elvis poked his head out, confused. "What?" "You heard me. If this is where you feel safe, if this is where you can be yourself without all those eyes on you, then sing from under here." We'll put a microphone down, and you sing from your safe place." "Sam, that's crazy. You can't record." "Who says I can't? I'm Sam Phillips. I recorded music in a room the size of a closet for years. You think I care if you're sitting on a stool or hiding under a piano? I care about the feeling in your voice, and right now, your voice out there is scared and tight. Let's see what it sounds like in here." Sam called the engineers and explained what they were going to do. The RCA people thought he was insane, but Sam was legendary in the business. If Sam Phillips said to record under a piano, they'd try it. They set up a microphone under the piano, positioning it carefully to capture Elvis's voice while minimizing the resonance from the piano soundboard above him. Elvis stayed in his hiding spot, still skeptical. "What song should I do?" "What do you want to sing right now?" Sam asked. "Not what you think they want to hear. What do you need to sing?" Elvis thought for a moment. "There's this song I heard. It's a blues number, really raw. I don't think RCA will like it." "Sing it anyway." Elvis started singing from under the piano. At first, his voice was tentative, still nervous, but then something shifted. The enclosed space under the piano created a cocoon effect. Elvis couldn't see the engineers, couldn't see the executives, couldn't see anyone watching and judging. It was just him, the darkness under the piano, and the music. His voice opened up. The stiffness melted away. He sang with the raw emotion and spontaneity that had been missing from every take that afternoon. In the control room, Steve Scholz's eyes widened. "That's it. That's the voice from the Sun Records demos. That's the real Elvis." They recorded 3 complete takes with Elvis under the piano. Each one was better than anything they'd captured in the previous 4 hours. When they finished, Sam crawled under the piano next to Elvis. "See? The music's in you, not in the studio, not in the equipment, not in meeting everyone's expectations, in you. And sometimes you have to go to your safe place to remember that." Elvis emerged from under the piano with red eyes and a genuine smile, the first real smile anyone had seen from him all day. "Can we try something else?" Elvis asked. "But maybe I'll stay under here for it." They recorded 2 more songs with Elvis under the piano. The session that had been a disaster became one of the most productive and authentic recording experiences Elvis had in those early days with RCA. The story of Elvis recording under the piano became legendary in music production circles, though it was rarely told publicly during his lifetime. Musicians who struggled with studio anxiety would hear the story and feel less alone. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, hid under a piano and cried, producer Rick Rubin said in a later interview about the story. And then he made some of his best music from that vulnerable place. That tells you everything you need to know about where real art comes from. The recordings from that session became some of Elvis's most beloved tracks. When fans listened to them, they had no idea that the raw emotional quality they loved came from Elvis singing while literally hiding under a piano. Sam Phillips told the story occasionally in later years, always with deep affection. Elvis thought he'd failed that day by breaking down. He thought hiding under the piano proved he wasn't strong enough for the big leagues. But I told him the opposite was true. It took more courage to admit he needed a safe place than it would have taken to fake his way through another bad take. Elvis himself rarely spoke about the incident publicly, but he did mention it once in a 1971 interview when asked about performance anxiety. "Early on, I had this session where I just couldn't perform," Elvis said carefully. "The pressure got to me, and I did something embarrassing. I hid. But the producer, Sam Phillips, he didn't shame me for it. He met me where I was, and we made something real from that vulnerable place." The interviewer asked if Elvis still struggled with that pressure. "Every time," Elvis admitted. "Every single performance, every recording, there's that voice saying, 'I'm not good enough.' But I learned something that day. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be always strong. You just have to be honest. And sometimes being honest means admitting you need a safe place to create from." The piano Elvis hid under, a Steinway grand piano from RCA's Studio B in Nashville, is now part of the Country Music Hall of Fame collection. There's a small placard near it that reads, Steinway Grand Piano, RCA Studio B, Nashville, used in numerous historic recording sessions, 1950s to 1970s. But those who know the full story see it differently. That piano holds a secret story about vulnerability, about the pressure of expectations, and about finding a safe place to be yourself when the world feels too big. Music students and struggling artists sometimes visit that piano specifically because of the story. They stand or sit near it, imagining Elvis curled up underneath, crying from the pressure, then singing his heart out from that dark, enclosed space. That story changed my life, said Grammy-winning artist Sarah Bareilles in a 2019 interview. When I'm in the studio and nothing's working and I feel like a fraud, I think about Elvis under that piano. I think about how the greatest artists aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who struggle honestly. The lesson of Elvis under the piano isn't about hiding from pressure. It's about recognizing when you need a safe place and being brave enough to ask for one. It's about producers and collaborators who meet artists where they are instead of where they're supposed to be. Sam Phillips could have done what most producers would do. Tell Elvis to pull himself together, threaten his career, remind him about the money invested in him. Instead, Sam crawled down to Elvis's level and said, "Okay, if this is where you need to be, we'll record you here." That choice to honor vulnerability instead of shame, it created some of the most authentic music of Elvis's career. Today, many recording studios have a culture of perfectionism and pressure. Artists are expected to deliver flawless performances on demand. But some progressive producers are trying to change that, inspired in part by stories like Elvis under the piano. "We created a safe space protocol in our studio," said producer Jack Antonoff. "If an artist is struggling, we find what makes them comfortable. Dim lights, sitting on the floor, recording in a closet, whatever. The Elvis story taught us that great art doesn't come from pressure and discomfort. It comes from safety and honesty." The story also resonates with people dealing with anxiety and mental health struggles. The image of Elvis, strong, famous, talented Elvis, needing to hide and cry under a piano, makes people feel less alone in their own moments of overwhelm. "When my therapist told me the Elvis piano story, I cried," wrote one fan in an online forum. "I'd always thought I was weak, because I sometimes need to hide when things get too much. But if Elvis needed that, maybe it's not weakness. Maybe it's human." Perhaps the most powerful legacy of that day in 1956 is this: vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength. Sometimes vulnerability is how we access our real strength. Elvis didn't make great music despite breaking down and hiding. He made great music because he was honest about needing a safe place, and because someone cared enough to meet him there. The piano is just wood and strings, as Sam's mother said. The music was always in Elvis, but sometimes to access that music, he needed to be in a dark, small space where nobody was watching and judging, where he could just be Elvis Aaron Presley, scared and human and doing his best. And from that place of honest vulnerability, he created something that would live forever. The next time you listen to those 1956 recordings, remember, some of what you're hearing came from a young man hiding under a piano, crying from pressure, then singing from his heart because someone gave him permission to do it from his safe place. That's not a story about weakness. That's a story about the courage to be vulnerable. And sometimes that's the bravest thing of all. If this story of finding your safe place and the courage to be vulnerable moved you, subscribe and share it. Where do you go when the pressure gets too much? Let us know in the comments. Hit that notification bell for more true stories about the real struggles behind legendary performances.